Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson, the show where we talk about everything you didn't know about art. This week we continue our deep dive into Hieronymus Bosch.
There was one other Bosch piece that I really thought was Blue, that was again playing with the idea of the viewer, of the larger figure that conveys different meanings. And
would it happen to be Spray Planet?
I believe it was.
Because that one has caught my eye a couple of times, where it has the intense orange and blue with the division of black kind of up near the top of the... It's like a side view of a building where you can see where the roof peaks up. And there's a lot underneath that's written. I'm seeing a lot of like various different media figures. Like there's Darth Vader in there. And the Eye of Sauron.
Actually, while I search for that, I'm going to challenge you to give it, since you the first read out of the park, I'll let you run this one too. As I very quickly try to find the right image now.
Yeah, so looking on the side of the painting that's underneath the blue sky, which you would believe would be sort of like the good guys or the heroes, where there's lots of green trees, and it something that kind of looks like one of those little bullet guys from Mario, except it's a watermelon.
A bullet bill, watermelon bill.
Yeah, there's just a couple watermelons, but on the quote-unquote hero side, you can't really see many of the faces. Like, you do see this one person who is somewhat distorted, who is reaching forward to have the ring fall onto their finger, like it did in that one scene in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo was in the bar and he got knocked backwards and the ring went flying and then it landed on his finger. But you can see more of the faces on the other side of that. And hang on, let me see if there's a better way I can open it so I can zoom in and have the Google not do the weird thing.
The piece is called Occupy Mordor.
I love that.
Which adds a whole new level of question too, which is beautiful. This is definitely one, folks, you need to look just to see the fantastic line work alone.
Yeah, okay, so looking on the other side, you can see a lot more of the faces, and we have Darth Vader surrounded by some stormtroopers. We've got like a couple of chefs. I think we have Pinocchio. Some like faceless soldiers, so you can only see like a little slit for where their eyes might be. You've got some babies in suits. And behind it, like you can see the city, and there are some sparks of yellow that makes it almost look like maybe the city itself is on fire, but like the image curves up to where it's like sideways almost. And there are two tall tower buildings. Really pretty, really nice job done with the Eye of Sauron. And there are multiple gates, and they are all open to let the army out. Also seeing somewhere over on the other side, near where, because there's actually like a door that opens, and some of the painting goes on the door as well as on some windows. I see what looks like some stereos.
Yeah. Which, there's so many questions that can be raised just based off of that, is the idea that with what they have, with what is available to fight back against what seems unstoppable.
Yeah, I actually just noticed that we do indeed have Sauron. He's wearing a suit with a sash of
Italy.
The Italian flag, because this was done in Italy, who is also reaching for the ring. It's a power struggle between known and even... There's some faces that are known as being villainous and oppressive and liars and immature, surrounded by people whose identities are like very intentionally being obscured. like the stormtroopers and the other soldiers. It's a faceless enemy, whereas on the other side, the reason you can't really see many of the faces is there's so many of them, and they are all together. It might be a smaller or less powerful movement, but they're still very much in this together. And they are throwing fruit. Watermelons. There's probably symbolism behind that I'm not catching, but they are hucking watermelons at the enemy. They are bolstering their voices. Yeah, there's like a catapult in the back. And they're starting to take the power back.
That is another fantastic read.
And it looks like he had to paint over it.
Yes, that actually is a very interesting thing I will talk about as well, or you can talk about it if you would like. The idea, though, is that the other side has, again, babies in suits, Darth freaking Vader, and Sauron as the Italian Prime Minister, which, if you look up any of Blue's commentary over his works, the dude does not pull punches. Ever.
I get that impression.
Oh, yeah. But with the other side of those who are fighting back with music, with art, with, well, watermelons, it feels like it's a couple of messages rolled into one. The first is not to fall to the level of, well, we're going to pick on Darth Vader because, again, I love how they drew the little hat there, or the helmet.
Yeah, it's kind of like very cutesy and chibi.
Exactly. The idea is you do not need to stoop to the level of your enemy in order to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
That these people can fight back with their art, with their music, with fruit. That part I'm not totally sure on, but also I really, really want to see that. Hope that one watermelon is flying towards the puppet dictator.
Yeah. Did you spot the Pinocchio there kind of towards the back?
Yep. Complete with the Kermit arm flail.
Yes. Not subtle at all.
No. However, there is some interesting commentary that I would like to let Rihanna take over because she has found it, and it's so much more cool when somebody has learned to do things about art and they get to talk about it. If you want, of course, I can take it too, but this does play into the fact of some street artists do feel that the reason their work is being monopolized or incentivized, or in the case of Occupy Mordor, due to the explosion of other artists like Banksy, that his reaction to this is what really stands out as, well, a mark of respect. But I'll let Brianna take over on this.
Oh, I just pulled up a random website.
Oh, I can talk about it then, and you can kind of give your read on that afterwards. So,
yeah.
A particular situation that has happened with street art, of course, is the commercialization. Banksy and several other artists have not necessarily sold out. As an artist, I have to say that everybody has to make money somehow, so you can't really fault that. But at the same time, that graffiti has now been recognized and accepted by the art world is now commodifying it. In this particular case, there is a term called artification.
It's almost like people have to get a license or permission to do graffiti on a building.
Correct.
Although my question is how is he able to finish this before anyone did anything? The amount of work. It takes up an entire side of a 2-story building. They knew he was doing it.
The piece did remain up until the city of Bologna had decided that they were going to transpose all of these pieces of graffiti to a gallery. Blue, in protest, actually painted over this himself.
Oh.
Because he did not want his piece in a gallery that did not speak for him. He wanted this piece to be seen by everybody.
Yeah, it's like, you're not going to put my piece behind a paywall when I'm speaking out against depression and a lot of what you stand for. It couldn't have been easy, both physically and emotionally, to paint over that work, but the dedication to you are not going to use my work to tell a different message, I gotta respect that.
Most definitely. The fact is that Blue destroyed his own work because, again, those in power decided that they could use his work to send their message. He sent his own back. The interesting thing about this particular piece is the former president of Genesis Bologna, Fabio Raversi Monaco, claimed that Blue's works were illegally created on the sides of buildings he didn't own. They could then legally be acquired by the city by purchasing said buildings. Blue responded to that by painting over it.
You think you can just buy my work as simple as buying a building? That's ridiculous, by the way. Just like, well, if you're not gonna let us transpose the work, we'll just buy the building so we don't have to ask you. He's like, yeah, that ain't gonna work. You think I'm just gonna stand here and let you throw money at the problem like that? No. Congratulations, you now have the building with a gray wall. Just such a polite little middle finger.
And I think it was beautiful. The fact is that street art in its prime is protest. It is the mark of the revolutionary. It is somebody saying, I don't need a gallery to send my message. You can have your pretty little walls, I'll take the streets.
I have a story to tell, and I'm going to tell it, and I'm going to tell it in a way and a place where everyone can enjoy it.
Exactly. And in the true spirit of street art, and the fact that it is seen as a pre-Banksy, it was a method of, guerrilla protest, that I'm going to say what I want to say, and you people are going to listen. That to instead flip it around and go, you ain't having my work, it not only sent the message that to galleries that street artists are not for sale, that at the end of the day, it's not about the artist, it's about the message, which Blue takes mad points for that. That, well, in an era of commodification of art and a message, Blue said, I'm not playing.
I'm not playing your game. I have my own thing that I'm doing. Yeah, got a lot of respect for Blue. So there was a piece of blues that you wanted to talk about, though, before we got thoroughly distracted by Occupy Mordor.
Actually, Occupy Mordor sent the message exactly that I wanted to talk about, and I will flip back to that so I can make sure I complete this thought. The fact is that up until this point, gallery owners and major patrons had this idea that they could own it, that street art was just another commodity, that it was the same as a painting. But instead, he struck a blow to prove that street art isn't about the artist, it isn't about the message, it's about the message of what they want to say. And if the building or the location chooses to no longer say it, he felt it was his duty to take it down. It also embarrassed the Genius Bonnet institution to the nth degree, because that was one of the pieces they had banked their show on. Without consent of the artist, for the record.
Yeah, what's that about, the don't count your eggs before they hatch? There's a phrase or two for that. But just to think that a lot of this happened and its specific method was inspired by Bosch. 500 years ago?
Yeah.
With his whimsical nightmare fuel, surreal horror.
And while these two artists can take the idea of surrealism and the human and the grotesque and monstrous, and they can both create these cozy technological robots as well as these charged political messages with the same visual stacking idea. It is a mark that Bosch's influence has been strong still.
What are some other places, because like we've talked about video games, we've talked about street art, but what about like movies, TV shows, things like that, other forms of media where we can see influences of his work today?
The one I can think of off the top of my head, interestingly enough, is Monkey Bone.
Not familiar with that one.
You're
Continue.
You're probably better off not. However,
I will not Google.
Oh, it's safe for Google. It's just it does play with the idea of the tortured artist, where the creator of a fictional monkey, aka Monkey Bone, was created by this artist who originally did these monstrous works, much like Bosch, of grotesque things, so human vegetables and whatnot. There's even an interesting nod to Picasso's Blue the Bull. However, it plays with the idea that when he changes the hand he uses, he creates this mischievous, cartoon-like character known as Monkey Bone. However, both worlds still lurked below the surface, where, when involved in an accident, the artist Stu Miley is drawn into his own subconscious, where he sees that these nightmares are still there alongside Monkey Bone. And, well, more or less that you have to recognize both sides in order to, well, not completely lose your mind, or in this case be taken over by a cartoon monkey with the impulse control of a ferret on espresso.
Yeah, I just had a thought of the conceit of the hidden or unseen world that is full of horrors that are twisted versions of things we think we know. That's very common in urban fantasy and supernatural and paranormal stories.
Ooh. Expand on that.
Not all of them do that specifically, but in urban fantasy, whenever people are faced against monsters that come from this hidden world that most people don't know about, sometimes those monsters do appear to be human until you know what to look for. And then you start noticing the things about them that are not, and then you see them as they really are, and they are twisted, they are grotesque. Sometimes they are vaguely insect-like, or like a mixture of a human and another creature. Like werewolves, vampires, some of the more common ones. Undead. That's where the actual essence of life has been twisted into something else. It's very common, and specifically it's like Monster of the Week kind of stuff, and I'm not just saying that because I very much enjoy the game, the tabletop game Monster of the Week, but in that sort of genre of show where there's something in the world around you that isn't what it seems, and you have to figure out what it is. It's part of this unseen world, and the more you start to learn about that unseen world, the more you start to see of the unseen world. Especially with like stuff that like goes into horror, like with the supernatural, well, both supernatural as a genre and the TV show, and different sort of paranormal stories.
I do like that you mentioned supernatural too.
Yeah, it may not just have come from Bosch, but there's got to be some influence from that.
Yeah, with truth comes madness. The entire fact is that, of course, not counting the use of the mythology, but even the hunters, the ones that know the truth, they're on the outside. Bosch is challenging the viewer to think outside society as well.
Yeah, a lot of the times in those urban fantasy worlds, we're trying to keep the rest of the known world from seeing the monstrous side that lurks just beneath the surface. Another good example is something from the Nightside series, Welcome to the Nightside, where there is this like secret city hidden deep within the heart of London called the Nightside. And it's there, and there are all kinds of unknowable, very deeply twisted things, like a house that eats people, dude that made a deal with God and now can't die, another dude that made a deal with God and now can't die. Yeah, it's like Straight Razor Eddie and the Dead Boy detective. Very much makes me think of GD.
Just the polar opposite. One can't die, the other keeps falling apart.
Well, his deal was made after he died. He was brought back long enough to get vengeance, and then got his vengeance, and apparently didn't pay enough attention to the terms and conditions because he's still here.
Yeah, the terms and conditions always get you in the end.
Yeah, you gotta pay attention.
But yeah, those are other great uses of how Bosch does influence not only visual media, but other media as well, such as storytelling.
Yeah. And sometimes is I had a thought and I'm laughing because there's irony behind this thought. The more you know about the thought of like the thought and the intention behind the thing that was created, the more you can see the hallmarks of that message in other media. And it starts to shape how you interact with that media and what you see in other stories and other art. It may even impact your conversation. You look into the void and the void starts to change you. And sometimes that's not a bad thing.
I like that.
Better understanding the complex, messy world we live in isn't a bad thing.
Not at all.
It helps you get perspective. It helps you get understanding. Maybe helps you avoid making some of the same mistakes that people in the past have made. And maybe even people in your own family.
I like that.
Bosch wanted people to take a closer look at something. So he showed it to them using tools and methods that they understood to help them shift their perspective a little bit. And it may not have worked on all of them, but we still feel and see the impact today.
You may not win the fight, but you change one person, it's still a win.
Yeah. Art has power. Stories have power. May not change the world in your lifetime, but it has a ripple effect. As we have seen with the art and story of Hieronymus Bosch, and as we will see with other artists and movements they inspired in the future.
Exactly. And to wind up this particular session, I want anyone who is following us on the various social medias, drop your thoughts into us. Tell us what you have seen or what some of these images have made you realize about the world around you, or at least given you new ideas. We'd love to hear how our weirdness affects you all.
Yeah. What we might do is, I think we'll just give you a place to talk about the specific pieces we discussed, as well as any other thoughts that you have.
Yeah.
Whether it's related to Bosch, the stories that he's inspired, or maybe ideas that you have of stories and art pieces you want to explore.
Yeah, there are so many there's so many more interesting takes that Bosch and the use of surrealism has influenced. So drop me here and we will be happy to talk about those on the next round of Bosch shows too.
Yeah, and just ask anyone who knows me. I will always push people to do creative stuff. If you have an idea and you want to do it, do it. Do it, do it, do it. You could ask my co-host. I do it to him all the time.
You'd think I'd learn, but no, I keep walking right into him.
Like you actually mind at all.
Fair point.
Don't kid the listeners. You have no regrets.
No regrets. Oh, all right.
So I believe that's a wrap on Bosch. Who are we doing next? Who's next?
We do have some stuff that we can still continue on Bosch for one more round if we want. If not, we are going to hop over to print blocking and Hokusai.
Yeah. I don't know what that is yet. I'm excited to learn.
I will provide, as always, the contextual lists, and maybe this time we will set our social medias up with the pictures in advance.
Yeah. Although by the time this actually comes out, we will have the social media up. Thank you for listening to an unexpected art lesson as we have talked about the art and impact of Hieronymus Bosch. Stay tuned next time as we talk about an art style and some of the artists that help feed into it. Also, if you have any questions or comments or things you would like to hear us talk about in the future, send us an email at unexpected.artlesson@gmail.com.